She screamed silently in the scorching Arizona desert. Kaylina Rivers, 25 and 7 months pregnant, was bound to a gnarled cottonwood tree. The wooden sign around her neck read, "Useless Mouth," in cruel black letters. Her throat bore a fresh bandage where Jackson Crow had damaged her vocal cords 3 days ago, stealing her voice forever. Sweat trickled down her temple, and her legs ached from the hours of being tied. Yet her spirit clung stubbornly to life. The morning sun climbed higher as buzzards circled overhead, their wings casting fleeting shadows on the cracked earth. Kaylina's pale blue dress clung to her swollen belly, dust and sand coating her skin. She had given up hope when hoofbeats echoed across the canyon, each step reverberating through her chest like a fragile promise. Silas Thorne, 32 years old, rode his chestnut mare toward the ancient tree. His weathered cowboy hat cast shadows over kind brown eyes that had seen too much sorrow. 5 years ago, he lost his wife and infant son to fever, and since then, he rarely spoke to anyone, retreating into the rhythms of ranch life and solitude. Yet something in the desperation of this woman stirred a protective instinct long dormant. When Silas saw the pregnant woman tied to the tree, his jaw tightened. He dismounted quickly, his boots crunching on desert sand, and a thin layer of dust clung to his coat. Without hesitation, he cut the ropes binding her wrists and caught her as she collapsed against him, her body trembling from exhaustion and fear. Kaylina looked up at the stranger, with grateful tears streaming down her face. She pointed to her throat and shook her head sadly. Silas understood immediately. He lifted her gently onto his horse, careful not to jostle her swollen belly, and rode toward his ranch without saying a word, the wind carrying the faint scent of sagebrush. At his modest home, Silas prepared a soft bed with blankets warmed by the late afternoon sun and ladled warm broth into a chip bowl. Kaylina wrote in a small notebook she carried, "Thank you, kind sir. I am Kaylina Rivers. A bad man hurt me and left me to die." Silas read her words and nodded silently. He wrote back on a scrap of paper, "You are safe now. I am Silas Thorne. Rest." He offered her a reassuring smile, and for the first time in years his eyes softened. Days passed peacefully. Silas tended his cattle in the early mornings, while Kaylina recovered her strength. She helped with simple chores, fetching water, feeding the chickens, and learning the rhythm of ranch life. Communication flowed through gestures in her notebook, and despite their silence, they understood each other perfectly, a quiet bond growing with every shared task. When Kaylina went into labor during a fierce thunderstorm, the rain thrashing against the roof, Silas assisted with calm determination. Candlelight flickered across the room as she moaned softly, her hands gripping the edges of the bed. Baby Jet entered the world with a healthy cry, filling the quiet house with a warmth and joy neither had known for years. Holding her son, Kaylina wrote, "His name is Jet Thorne, if you will have us." Silas smiled for the first time in years, lines of sorrow softening around his eyes. He wrote back, "This is your home now. You are my family." 3 months later, Jackson Crow arrived at the ranch, his spurred boots kicking up dust. The cruel man had tracked him across 2 counties, determined to reclaim what he considered his property. "She belongs to me," Jackson snarled, his hand resting on his gun. "That baby, too." Silas stepped between them, his own weapon steady in his hands. Though he rarely spoke, his message was clear. Jackson would not take them. The tension crackled like the electricity before a desert storm. The confrontation ended quickly. Jackson, seeing the unwavering determination in Silas's eyes and the shotgun in his hands, retreated into the desert. He never returned, leaving only the wind and sand in his wake. That evening, as Kaylina rocked Baby Jet on the front porch, raindrops glistening on the wooden railing, she wrote, "How can I ever thank you?" Silas sat beside her in the warm twilight. He took her pencil and wrote, "You already have. You brought life back to this old house." The desert sunset painted the sky in gentle oranges and purples. 3 people who had found each other in the vastness of Arizona sat together in comfortable silence. Sometimes the deepest conversations happen without words. Kaylina looked at her sleeping son, then at the man who had saved them both. She wrote one final message. "We love you, Silas Thorne." He smiled and wrote back, "And I love you both more than words could ever say." In the quiet of the desert evening, with stars beginning to twinkle overhead, they sat together as a family. Love had triumphed over cruelty, and kindness had created something beautiful from tragedy. The old ranch house, once filled with loneliness, now echoed with the gentle sounds of babies' laughter and the soft scratch of pencil on paper. Two wounded souls had found healing in each other's company, proving that sometimes the most profound connections are built not on words, but on understanding, patience, and unconditional acceptance. Years later, when Jet was old enough to understand, Carolina would write him the story of how a silent rancher became his father through an act of pure kindness in the desert. She would tell him that some heroes speak loudest through their actions, and that love, even without words, can heal wounds and create a home.